Yep.
Well, we made the decision that the only thing we could do, our emergency radio that was on board the aircraft didn't work. So there we were in the water. We hadn't we hadn't notified anybody that we had crashed, and they didn't know where we were. But it was decided that myself and one other officer would go with one Filipino in an outrigger canoe to go up to this radio station that they'd telling us about. And so it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon when we hit the water the first time, and it's now about 2 hours after that, but about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we still hadn't contacted anybody to tell them where we were. So we started out sailing in this outrigger canoe with this one Filipino to go to the radio station. And after about 2 hours, we approached a small island that was occupied. It was people lived on board on the island, but they didn't have any facilities of any kind. They were just Filipinos. So we decided then it was getting late in the afternoon that we'd spend the night on this island and go the trip to finish up the trip the next day. So we did that. We stayed on the island, and they had a party for us that night. And they were thoughtful enough that they boiled water for us to drink. They knew we couldn't drink their water because it would be contaminated for us. So they boiled water and made some stew and fixed us a supper, and we spent the night there. Now the next night we got back on board our outrigger canoe and headed up the coastline to the radio station. And what we didn't know was that after we left the group, original group, they did get the emergency radio to work, and they sent out a distress signal. And fortunately for us, there was an American destroyer escort ship that was close by to where we were, and they responded to the distress call, and they went in and picked up the rest of the men that had been on the aircraft, and they went back out to sea. They wouldn't stay within range of shore batteries because they didn't know when Japanese might show up there too, so they went back out to sea, and we continued on. And in the middle of the morning, the next morning, there was a search aircraft was looking for us, and they found us. It was a PBY-5 aircraft that we were all familiar with, which was an air-sea rescue aircraft, and they landed in the water and picked us up. And so we were back in flying situation again, and we were sure glad to see that aircraft coming.
Well, now somehow I was under the impression that there was a time when you spent several weeks or several days on one of the islands. Is that a different story?
That's a different story.
Oh, okay. Well, you can tell that one too if you're not when you get done with this one. I don't mean to cut you short.
So this rescue aircraft took us back to the base where we could get a flight back to our home unit, and we did. And so there we were 2 days later back where we started from. But we were grateful that we were to be back.
How long was your mission supposed to last if you hadn't crashed?
Well, if we hadn't crashed, we would have been in Australia the next day and picked up the aircraft, and then it was a 2-day flight back to Manila.
Boy, I guess plane travel has sped up since then, hasn't it?
Aircraft flew at about 140 miles an hour.
Wow. So what were you going to, so you were just going to Australia to pick up another airplane?
Pick up a new aircraft. So we got back to our home unit, and the next day we got on another aircraft and went south, headed south again, and went to Australia and got the aircraft and brought it back to the Philippines.
Did you see anything while you were in Australia, or did you just pretty much pick up the plane and leave
We
again?
pretty much went to the airfield and picked up the plane and came back. Later on, I went to Australia and saw the country of Australia pretty well.
Now, did you ever go to Australia with your wife Martha, or was that?
No, she was in the United States, a long way, halfway around the world from where I was. So that puts us back into the regular duty at the Air Force headquarters, 13th Air Force headquarters in the Philippines.
And okay, we'll stop a minute.